Okay, so not much has changed here. Pretty much the same since the last time we talked. But how about we turn around, see what's going on here. Oh boy. Oh boy, we got some changes in here. Oh man, this room's starting to come together, baby. Things are starting to look good. I'm not going to go into all the fine details yet. I think I'll wait until I have everything fully in this room before I kind of do a full tour, so to speak, at least if you guys are interested. But this is more or less what I think the final layout's going to be. And it's kind of hard to film everything. Since this room is so small, this lens doesn't go back wide enough for what I want it to show, but there's a pretty good amount of space here. Obviously, these monitors that are here right now, I have yet to put up the 6-foot shelf here, but give me some time, I'm almost onto that. But once those are gone, I mean, there's going to be a good amount of room here. This is going to be really nice for me to just honestly walk around and live like a human, because in that other room I was like constantly going like this and stepping over wires and everything, so you know, it wasn't ideal, but I'm really starting to like where everything's going here. Everything's spaced out. I am honestly extremely exhausted. It is basically, heck of focus. It's midnight basically, and another day of me working straight. I know I keep saying it, but all this stuff, moving it, oh my god, setting everything up, it's a lot of work, and I think it's really important that you just gotta keep in mind, look at this fucking rack, man. I packed this thing in like sardines. Now, some of this stuff is temporary. I'm gonna be taking it out and putting it on shelves and stuff, but more or less what it's gonna be in, I mean, this is a great fucking room treatment. The amount of mass that is here and the differing edges for diffraction and diffusion, whatever the correct goddamn word is, either way, this is nice. And it's right across from my drum set. The drum set sound is coming straight to here. Now, maybe ideally there would be some sort of actual room treatment here, but this is as good as it's gonna get, baby. Now, I'm already starting to think about room treatment. I'm definitely gonna put some right here, so that's behind the desk. It's not perfect. Behind the desk is more like right here, but that'll be fine. I think I'm going to do some bass traps. I have room. At first I was like, fuck, I'm not going to have room, but I think I'm going to have room. Maybe I'll put some up there, put some up there. We'll see. We'll see how expensive it is. I might do it in, in phases, so I could, save up the money to build this stuff. I was originally thinking about putting a shelf there, but it's just, I don't really want anything overhanging the tape machine. I was also thinking of putting the TAC 80-8 right here. That thing is way too heavy for the wall, so I was thinking of making a shelf that sits on the floor, but it would just be too much, and I'm not sure how much I'm actually going to be using that. I might, I hate to say it, put that goddamn thing on wheels. Just like everything else, I'm getting obsessed with casters, but for example, I mean, like, this is a similar weight, and this twin reverb's on casters, and man, it's so nice. This wood floor makes it so nice. I'm kind of thinking about making this rug, flip this way, so the long way is this way. This way I could roll the stuff on wheels here easily without it hitting the carpet, because that is an awesome feature that I keep talking about in these videos, is being able to roll this stuff back and forth. But yeah, that's about it. I still have more shelves to put up. I don't really know where they're going yet. You see, I have two of these. I'm thinking of putting one there and one there, and I'm going to put these monitors up there. I think I'm going to make these my B monitors, as you call them, because I can't get rid of them. These are my babies. I can't get rid of them, Oh man, I am delirious right now. I haven't eaten in like 15 hours, but I gotta go to bed soon. There's one thing I wanted to do before I went to bed tonight. Oh my god, I left my booty rag on the floor. That is so embarrassing, my booty rag. I want to do one thing before I go to bed. I'm not really in love with this rug, this carpet, whatever the hell you want to call it. And I burnt it, as you guys remember, with the iron like an idiot. I'm thinking of taking the rug that's downstairs. Let's go measure that rug, and you can see the mess of stuff out here. I still have boxes of stuff. A lot. I mean, look at how many wires in here. Wow, it's crazy how different the acoustics are in this room compared to this room. I just noticed that. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more reverberation in this room. So that acoustic treatment might be essential to make this room, you know, good sounding. I don't know if a dead room is necessarily going to help me, but when I come in here, I mean, it's so different. Everything sounds so much closer. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. Look at this mess in here. Oh my God. Holy moly. Let's go measure that rug. Okay, so this is the rug. I kind of like this rug. Bought it for like 40 bucks. Craigslist-a-rooney. Alright, let's measure this bad boy. Put the tape around here. It's going to be hard to do with one hand. Somehow that's staying. Alright, so we got about 8 feet. Let's just say 8 feet. What are we going to guess? 4 feet this way? Let's see. Nope, it's about 5.5 feet. So 8 by 5.5 feet. Let's go measure that. Here's the carcass of the desk I just tore apart a couple hours ago. I really gotta go to bed. I got work in the morning. I haven't even made lunch yet. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Alright, so let's see where 5.5 feet gets us in this room. I'm gonna have to put this on the tripod. Okay, let's see what we got. Alright, 5.5 feet brings us right about here. It's pretty good. With that, I'll be able to move the desk approximately 1.5 feet. If I need to, of course, I could come over the rug. I'm sure that won't be a problem, or I could kind of curl the rug back. But 8 feet is going to get us... Oh wow, that's actually a bigger rug than I thought. 8 feet's going to be all the way to here. I'm not sure about that yet. I'm not sure. I don't know if I want a rug that big. You know, that rug is going to be hard. I know I'm like obsessed with casters, but it's going to be hard to roll stuff on top of it. So I'm gonna sleep on that. We'll think about it. It would definitely be nice to move this drum set a little forward, because I have a little room. All that needs a couple inches here. You can see I'm like right on the edge of this carpet. But it would be nice to get away from that wall. I hate playing against the wall, and I'm always backed in the corner, literally. I'm kind of tired of it. So if I could pull out just a couple inches, you know, 3 inches, just so my back's on the wall, you know, that'd be ideal. You know, I could, let's say if I take this rug, carpet, whatever the hell this is, 4.5 feet. 4.5 feet would get us 4.5 feet. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be enough. 4.5 feet gets us right pretty much where this leg is, and maybe I'll try that. It's easy enough to try. I just have to move the drum set, which is the easiest. Dude, moving all these racks with all this heavy equipment, I am beat, and I've been shoveling, because we had that gigantic snowstorm this weekend, and I've been shoveling for the past 2 days. I am exhausted. 6.5 feet. But it is a good workout doing all this stuff. Seriously, I've been sweating all day. 6.5. That would bring it to here. You know, maybe I just turn this rug 90 degrees. I think I might try that. I don't know. I think I gotta go to sleep, man. I'm delirious. Hopefully this past 10 minutes or so have made sense, because I am tired. Alright guys, good night. Okay guys, we're back for another update, and a lot has changed since the last time we talked. I'm going to try to take everything one by one, and hopefully I remember everything I did. And I'm going to respond to a couple comments that I've been getting. Now, this probably looks different than the last time we talked. Everything else more or less probably looks the same in this room. But you can see I did some rearranging here, and really, all the rearranging I did was because of these two monitors. And I got a comment regarding these two monitors, and I think in a previous update I was explaining how I actually inherited these monitors. But as you could see, these things are gigantic. And in an ideal recording studio control room, these monitors would not be nearly as close to the wall as they are now. This is like the worst case scenario for a good monitoring speaker setup. Now this is just because I don't really have much other choice. You're gonna see that's kind of a recurring theme throughout this series, is I'm just kind of trying to do the best with the cards that I've been dealt with, right? Ideally, you're supposed to have monitor speakers like 3 to 5 feet off the wall, because when you have speakers against the wall like that, the low end is really pronounced. But if I were to take these away from the wall 3 to 5 feet, that would literally put the monitors halfway in this room. So that means I would literally have to be sitting against this wall, right? And my mixing board would pretty much be where my drum set is. So obviously that's not realistic for my setup. I'd be wasting a shit ton of space if I were to do that. Now, I know this is the worst way to do it, but as I'm trying to tell you guys throughout the series, this is kind of just, I make garage music, and this is kind of what you get with garage music, because you don't really have the best recording setups and gear sometimes. Now, you can see I put my old monitors up there with the Pioneer receiver that's going to be powering and sending signal to those speakers. And then below it I have this Panasonic cassette recorder. I don't really plan on using that unit that much. You know, as you guys heard me talk about in my other videos, I hate cassettes, man. And I hate cassette players, so the only time I'm ever really going to use this at this point is if I ever get a car with a cassette player in it and I want to listen to my demos in the car. Other than that, any mixdown I do is almost always going to be on this Tascam 22-2. So right now that's just there for now, but who knows how often I'm actually going to use that. What is convenient about that shelf is that there's going to be minimal wires coming from that shelf to this board, and that was kind of my intention all along. The only wires that are going to be going to that top shelf are going to be the power cord to the Pioneer receiver and the 2 signal wires coming from the left and right channels of my board to that receiver. All the other wires and connections are all going to be on that shelf, right? The 2 speakers are going to be connect directly to the receiver. The cassette player is also going to connect to the receiver, both for the audio inputs as well as the power source, because there is a outlets on the back of that Pioneer receiver. So that's ideally what I wanted to begin with. I was originally planning putting on these 2 monitors up there, but that would require me to actually have more wires sent up to that top shelf, which once again I was trying to avoid, just because it's going to be nice to be able to pull this board back, you know, this desk back if I ever need to repair anything or change the routing of any of the audio signals. So the less wires I have going up there, the better for me. Another reason I chose to change this setup, if you remember, I had all of this gear on this one shelf. The reason I put these monitors here is because, one, they didn't fit on this shelf at all. So they kind of fit perfectly on the shelf I made for this desk here. I didn't plan that, it just kind of happened naturally. Now another thing is, as I mentioned a second ago, this is terrible for acoustics. To have your speakers, especially monitors, right against the wall, it's going to accentuate the bottom end of your whatever you're listening to by a considerable amount. Now, these monitor speakers have built into it a room control. Let's see if I can show you without dropping anything. Here we go. Easy, kid. Easy, kid. Okay. So, I think I showed this in the previous video, but focus, baby. Come on now. Uh-oh, my camera's making a funny noise. Here we go. So you can see we have some controls here. Low cut, high trim, room control, MIDI Q. The room control is going to be the most important here, and the purpose of that room control is to compensate for your speaker being really close up against the wall. Yamaha knew that most people, or not most people, but some people who are going to be using this monitor are unfortunately just going to have no choice but to have it up against the wall. It actually mentioned this in a kind of comical way in the manual for these speakers, that, you know, ideally you have it 3 to 5 feet away from the wall, but we all know most people are going to have it right against the wall. They kind of mention it themselves and mention that's what this room control switch is for. Now you can see here, come on baby, focus, what's going on? Alright, so you can see, got 0, negative 2 dB, 4 dB, and you can see that that lowers the signal below 500 hertz. In my case, since I'm right against the wall, I'm almost definitely going to have this on the negative 4 dB. I'm going to have to mess around with the mid EQ and the high trim. We'll see if that's necessary. I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think the acoustics in this room, once I put treatment up, it's going to be good enough. You know, I'm going to compare it to... Oh boy. Don't move. I'm going to compare it to how these monitors sound, because I'm used to how these monitors sound in my other room. You know, they were right up against the wall in like the worst ideal acoustical setting imaginable, so I know what they sound like. I know how they translate well to other mixes, so I'm going to compare what these monitors sound like to these new monitors to me. Now, if I were to buy monitors new or used, I would get probably, you know, I don't mind this Yamaha series of monitors. These are, you know, renowned rather. However, I would get a smaller version. I forget exactly what the model numbers are, but these ones are just way too big for this room. And if they were smaller, more bookshelf sized, it would be a lot better for me in this setup. As you can see here, I still have my Space Echo on top, so I could get to the, I could take the lid off and clean the heads if I need to, or replace the tape loop in there. What else? I still haven't connected anything to this board. I've been putting a lot of focus on this rack still. We'll get to that in a second. You can see I finally got this voltage regulator here, and voltage cleaner upper, whatever the hell it's called. I still, once again, haven't set anything up yet, but I don't want to get too much into my setup and how everything's connected, because that's going to be its own standalone video once I get everything set up, because I could easily talk about that for 2 hours and explain everything and my thought reasoning and, you know, why I switched certain things, why I did things a certain way. And, you know, this whole thing, as I keep saying, is it's a very iterative process. I've already changed how this rack is set up multiple times. So, you know, we'll get into this rack in a second. Let's talk about some other things. I did wind up switching this rug around. I think I told you guys I was going to do that. This allowed me to pull the drum set a little off the wall, which is really nice. It's a lot nicer to play now. It also left some wood here, which is really useful, because now I could roll back this desk and tape machine back there and the remote here very easily up to the point of my drum set. You can see I can pull it all the way up here, and I already did that to see. And, you know, obviously it gives me a good amount of room behind my desk when I need to do any repairs or rerouting. And, you know, this much, it's really not that much. Like, I can't do it on camera right now because I can't do it one-handed, but, you know, it's certainly nicer having the ability to get behind that stuff, but it's still not a lot of room. It's still going to be difficult to repair stuff. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be possible. And in my last setup downstairs, it wasn't even possible. You know, it was literally impossible for me to go back and fix wires. I mean, I've showed, you know, angles of that in the past, so it's, I'm so excited. I know I keep saying I'm so excited, but I hope my enthusiasm comes through on camera with you guys. And I'm still waiting on a 16 gang XLR, what'd you call it, a patch bay here? Not a patch bay, but it's going to be a rack unit with 16 XLR connections that I could connect microphones to, and 8 of those are going to go directly to these 8 channels here. The other 8 are going to go to various, I'll call preamps, even though this stuff isn't really preamps. Like, one's going to go to this tube preamp, which isn't actually considered a preamp. 4 are going to go to my trusty M67. 2 are going to go to the Altec. I rarely use this thing, but I'm going to start using it more once I get it set up here, because it's going to be a lot easier for me to use. I'm going to set up one of the XLR connections to this Bogan, which I love using for some grit. And how many is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 8. So that's 8 plus 8. So that'd be 16 right there. 16 XLR connections. I used to have everything below my tape machine, like in loose wire forms. I think I took a video of that. I'll show that on screen right now. And that's how I used to connect to everything. And this was not ideal for a couple reasons. One, it was on the floor and I had to get on my knees to do it. Two, it was just so disorganized out there. And for example, when I wanted to connect to one of the 8 channels here directly to the board, going through that snake and trying to find the channel 3 versus channel 6, it would sometimes take me 30 seconds. And that might not seem like a lot of time, but when you're in, at least for me, when time is limited and I do this stuff as a hobby, any time spent wasting time trying to find a wire or a connector, it's just wasted time that could be better suited for me recording music and being creative. So it's going to be so much nicer having that. Another thing is, this is a headphone amplifier here. I used to have that by my stereo receiver, which was like kind of like my top right of my old setup. And the headphone connections came out of the back, and they used to be routed underneath, once again, my tape machine. And when I had people come over and we were doing a live band setting, they would connect directly to the wires there. And it was just not ideal by any means. It sucked. It was messy. The wires would get tangled. Once again, it would just be such a waste of time setting up. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have basically my aux 6 send on my board. You can see each channel has an aux 6 send. That's going to be whatever I want to send to my headphone amplifier. I will turn those channels up. Probably in my default setting, I'll probably have each channel set up in the middle. This way, you know, I don't have to think about it when I'm mixing. It's just every single channel is going to be sent equally to that headphone amplifier, and that'll be enough for live tracking purposes. And essentially, when I have people over and we're recording in a live band setting, they could just connect directly to the front here. You can see there's headphone outs for the 4 channels here. And to me, I think that's going to be much more efficient. It's going to be cleaner, and I really don't use this that often. You know, most of the times when I'm recording by myself, I never use that because I don't need the headphone amplifier because I got the direct headphone out right here out of the board, and that's always what I use because that gives me the stereo mix. You know, in my headphones, I'm hearing exactly what the stereo mix bus is hearing on my control board, and that's exactly what I need for when, you know, I'm recording by myself. You can see I also added this micro limiter here, and I was trying to figure out how to set this thing up, where to put it, and on this unit, you can't see it now, but on the other side of this, there was just a threaded hole in the middle. And what I did was I drew a hole through this wooden piece of the rack into that and screwed it, and now this is attached via one screw. And you can see I have the wires, the power wire, as well as the input and output going through the rack. I drilled a hole here. You can see I put a zip tie on here so you can't pull on the wire, so once again there's no stress on these wires. And that'll be fun. Kind of an odd setup, but I think that'll force me to use this thing more because that's fun for really gritty sounds and, you know, really like synth-heavy sounds sound awesome through that limiter, so I'm excited for that. Someone had mentioned that I, for sonic reasons, should have put my control board over here. It would have gave me more room in this room as well as for sonic reasons, and there's a couple reasons why I didn't do that. One is that I need to get to that attic space easily. Right now, for me, all I have to do to get to that is just move this guitar rack here, which is no big deal at all, and I could get a ladder and go into that. If my control board was there, forget about it. I'm not going to be able to get into that. A second thing is, it's really hard for you guys to tell on camera because this room, you know, since it's so small, you know, it's not easy. Like, let me go to the corner here of the room so we can kind of show you what's going on. You know, unfortunately, I can't show everything on the camera, but it's really not as big as you think. It's a small room, and me putting the board there, it's hard for you to tell, but it actually wouldn't save any room in here. It would actually, I would argue, actually create less room in here because I would be wasting this space and this space because the board would kind of go in the middle, and I actually wouldn't have enough room for my tape machine, the board, and the rack like I have now. If you actually measure it out, this from like here to here would actually not fit there. So that just, it wasn't ideal, and it was just more convenient to put it here. It's, once again, not even remotely a professional setup, but for me, this is going to be awesome. I mean, look at this. This is really looking, in my opinion, fucking professional. Like, this is awesome. Once this rack gets going, I mean, look at this thing. Look at, like, when someone walks in this room, they're gonna go, oh shit, this is fucking professional. Before, when I just had all this gear kind of just thrown onto that IKEA desk, I mean, it looked awesome to me, all the knobs and lights and stuff, but it didn't really look professional. This is like, holy fuck, man. And I spent so much time setting this up. Like I said, there's so much going on behind the cameras here. I kind of realized that I'm turning it around, and I look like a maniac today. I'm literally wearing fucking all white long johns. But anyway, I realized kind of the time-lapse type of videos aren't that as interesting. I think me talking to the camera like this and explaining everything, you know, after I do it, I think is, one, easier for me to edit, and two, just kind of more interesting. The time-lapse stuff is just kind of boring in my opinion. Who wants to see me fucking patch wires together, right? So, let's keep talking here. I forgot to mention one thing about this rug. So, as I mentioned, I was able to move this drum set back, which gives me more room, but more importantly, I plan on putting corner bass trap here. And before, it was too close to my back. So right now, I was able to move that drum set forward, and it shouldn't interfere with me while I'm playing. You know, if I won't be able to lean back, but, you know, who cares? I'm not going to be able to lean back, no big deal. And it'll be nice like that. Someone mentioned, you know, wetting the rug to get rid of the folds in it. And I actually did that. I didn't wet it, but I did weigh it down with a lot of, you know, heavy objects and a piece of wood, and it helped a little bit. I think I'm gonna have to get, they sell like kind of like Velcro strips for rugs, because this keeps coming up here, and it's gonna be nice if that was kind of taped to the floor. I'm thinking about possibly getting a small rug here, depending on what the acoustics sound like once I put up the acoustic treatment in here. I may or may not want a rug here. Now, for kind of a comfortability factor, having a rug here is going to be nice once I start doing my writing and I have my guitar in hand, I'm sitting on the floor like I usually do, and I got my amp here, my bass amp here, my loop pedal. You know, having a rug here is going to be pretty nice. Someone mentioned that, you know, it's not a good idea to record anything in a corner. Yeah, I fucking know that, man. Unfortunately, when you have a room this small, no matter where you record, you're pretty much in a corner. I mean, no matter where I put this drum set, it's more or less in a corner, right? Like, even if I was like, okay, let me put the drums right here, right in front of this window. I mean, it would still be pretty close to this corner and that corner. Like, it's still not ideal. No matter where I put anything in this room, it's technically a corner, you know? Obviously, when you have something right up against the corner, it's a little worse, but as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm more looking to maximize my productivity and my organization rather than the sonic characteristics. Because, to me, it's going to be easier as a home recordist to have fun and songwrite rather than worry about acoustics the whole time. The room downstairs that I was recording in was, you know, terrible. I mean, the drum set was literally the worst situation I could have imagined. That room was so tiny, the ceiling's this tall. It was disgusting, but I made it work for the type of music I make, and we're just gonna have to deal with the acoustic. What the fuck was that? Hey, stop moving. Stop it. Okay. Alright, what else are we gonna talk about? I have been planning my acoustic treatment. I think I found the brand I'm gonna buy it from. It's kind of an equivalent of the Owens Corning 703, but it's a little bit more budget friendly. I'm gonna make it 4 inches thick, and I think a 2 foot by 4 foot piece here. Corner bass trap here, corner bass trap there. I don't know if I'm going to put corner bass traps here at first. I think I'm going to wait to save up some money to do those, because, you know, that acoustic padding is, you know, a little pricey, and I'm more concerned about the flat kind of acoustic treatment, the 4 inch thick, deep acoustic treatment. Probably put one there, maybe one there. Maybe one here, I don't know. I'm going to have to do this stuff as I go, as I save money, because I can't do this all at once. You know, I need to kind of space it out. What else we got going on here? Let me think what some of you guys were commenting and asking questions about. I kind of ignore a lot of the comments because I figured I'm going to talk about it in these videos. Oh, speaking of drum sets, someone mentioned in the last video, why don't you just set up a separate room for your drum set to be in? And for multiple reasons, I'm not doing that. One, purposely am trying to fit every single thing music related, which this isn't even all the stuff. I still have more stuff outside of this room in one room. As I stated, I think in the beginning of this series, my girlfriend's moving in and I need to consolidate my stuff into one room. I can't just have it all over the house. No one wants to deal with that. The second thing is, which someone replied to that comment suggesting that, is you know how much of a pain in the ass it is to track on drums while you're the one doing the recording and you're running between rooms. 100%. It's already a pain in the ass to set your levels and do the tracking when the drums are in the same room and you are the recording engineer running the session, as you call it. You have to get up, you have to adjust, get up, adjust, do a test, run back. You know, even that's a pain in the ass. I couldn't imagine doing that, you know, pressing record and playing, running out here to this room, opening up the door, coming into here. You know, right now this room is holy shit, a mess. I've literally just been throwing stuff in here. But anyway, let's say the drums were in here, you know, then I have to close the door, get ready. By the time I do all that, the amount of noise that's going to be on the track or me running around and, you know, hitting into things, it's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to be hard for me to set levels. So that's just not realistic. Now, interestingly enough, if I go here, I'll show you something. There actually is a hole in this wall already that goes to that other room. And that's because that used to be a coaxial table for TVs. You know, to put a TV in that room, it used to run through this room. Now, you know, no one uses coaxial tables for TVs anymore. But there is an existing wall, and the reason I'm mentioning it is I might eventually just put one XLR microphone cable through there once that room is cleaned up. And in the case where I'm doing a live band setup and I want to have the drums in here, I could put the guitar amp out here with the door closed, and then I could put, let's say, the bass amp in here. Then I could have complete separation for, you know, all the instruments being recorded. Now, I don't necessarily have to do that because I could, instead of running a cable through that wall, I could just run the cable with the cable for the guitar amp in here, you know, underneath the door, you know, into another room like my bedroom over here. You know, I'm not that too concerned about it. There's going to be a lot that I could do with that. Let's take a look at this rack now. And I started to finally label these. Once again, I'm not going to go too crazy going over everything because we'll do that in a separate video once I get everything in the setup, you know, hooked up, because it's going to be a lot to talk about this and I don't want to bore you guys too much. As you can see, I used the Dymo label maker. I'm not too sure about it. One, it's kind of hard to read, and they're not that sticky, so we'll see if these last. If not, no big deal. Now, I mentioned in a previous video of talking about the patch bay, the one that was here, that was backwards, how that was not going to work. And I said bonus points if you could figure out why that's not going to work. Now, if you are used to how patch bays work, specifically normalized patch bays, you cannot just switch a rack backwards like I did. And that's because a normal patch bay, let me go to this one here with the diagrams. Let me take this. I can't wait to put this thing on casters. I actually bought 4 casters for this. I already built a piece of plywood where this is going to sit on a piece of plywood with 4 casters. I cannot wait to have this thing on casters. Anyway, that's a sidebar here. Now let's go to the normal here. So the normal connection, this is a diagram of how a normal connection works. And this thing is heavy with these 2 power supplies on it. It's hard to move, but so you can see a normalized connection normally, come on, focus. You see on the back, I'm sorry, why is this not focusing? You can see in the first state where you have the back connections the back connections connected, you know, the normalized function bypasses this patch bay. And then when you connect something to it, that connection is broken between the 2 back connections, and that allows you basically to route an insert chain to a piece of equipment and back. So anyway, the point is, you can't just turn around the system like that, because that switching back is really important, where when you have nothing in the front connected, the back is connected. Now, if you were to switch this around, and you always have two connections to the front, the new front, I'm sorry, this is kind of hard to explain, but if you know how patch bays work, I'm making a lot of sense now. But to make a long story short, we're not going to get into it. I need to do a whole nother video on patch bays, but you can't just turn a normalized patch bay backwards. And I realized very quickly after I made that last video, like, wait a minute, that's not going to work. But in the interest of not having to buy more patch bays, I am just going to roll with this 1/4 inch here. Originally, I was saying I wanted to have these all RCAs, which would be ideal, but I don't feel like buying another patch bays. Out of curiosity, I was looking these up, and these are listed for like $50 on eBay. And that's just, it's insane. I think I bought multiples of these for $1. I think maybe I paid like $5 for one of the 4 I have. The other 2 are up there. These are not worth a lot of money. They are so common, and you see them at flea markets a lot. So the prices on eBay, I'm just not willing to pay that much to make this all RCAs. Now, as a compromise, what I'm going to wind up doing is they sell these adapters that plug into a 1/4 inch connector, and you could plug an RC connector into that adapter. We'll see how that works out. We'll see how reliable those adapters are. If I have issues with connections and, loose connections rather, and there's just not a good signal path, maybe I'll eventually buy another patch bay. But for now, this will work. I just ordered some of those adapters for 1/4 inch to RCA. So when those comes, we'll test those out and we'll see how it works. Not ideal, but in the interest, once again, of not having to buy new patch bays, I'm just going to do that. Now let's turn this thing around. And before I do that, let's just imagine I'm sitting at my control desk. Let's zoom out here. It's kind of hard to show, but right now I'm sorry, weird kind of long johns. This is not blood, it's Sharpie, I promise. But normally I'd be sitting this close, but for the sake of camera, I can't really show everything. So let's go back a little bit. So once I'm at my control board and I'm starting to mix some music, I'm thinking that, since this thing's on wheels, it'll be very nice to have the rack somewhere around here, like that. This way I could be at the board, I could see things really easily. I'm gonna most likely be touching the compressors the most. I purposely put this stuff on the bottom because I'm not going to be touching that as much. But I should be able to, very easily manipulate everything I need to right here, do a couple patches. This is a little uncomfortable because it's a little low to the ground, but it's not that bad. I will certainly be able to make it work, but that's super nice. And then at the end of the session, go like that. And I can push it back a little bit if I want to. I really don't need that much room to pull this thing out. If I ever do need to pull this out to work on something, I'm going to basically pull this board, this stuff that's going to be on casters, and this very slowly, right? I'm going to inch all these a little forward, 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 and then I'll be able to take all 3 parts of this setup here. I could also take the tape machine, let's just say that. I could take 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces and pull it forward. And the whole thing will go forward. And then I'll be able to work on this stuff if need be. So let's turn this thing around and show you what I did. I changed a couple things. Sorry, it's kind of hard to do this with one hand. Bear with me. Right now, this kind of looks like a mess, just because I haven't connected anything to the board yet, but hopefully you can see what's going on here. Let me get a better light. Okay, so here's the back. Hopefully the harsh lighting isn't too difficult to kind of see what's going on. You can see I added a couple things. I added this wooden block here, which I screwed underneath here. So just a piece of 2x4, and that's merely for 2 reasons. One, so when I push this 2-track machine back, I don't accidentally push it over the edge and cause it to fall over. Obviously that would be disastrous. So this piece of wood is there as a stop for the machine, as well as I showed in the previous video, I want to be able to turn this thing on its side. And because of these connectors, you can't put this flat on something. This would put a lot of stress on these connectors. You can see they're slightly pronounced from the back of the machine. So I'll be able to rest the top of this on this. It'll put the machine on a very slight angle, which is fine, and I'll be able to edit very easily. I also added this piece of wood here that spans the back of the rack. And you can see I only have 2 screws, one here, one on that side, and it allows this to rotate a little bit. And that's just so, once again, I have as little stress on the snake as possible. And you can see I started connecting all of these snakes here. And you can see I kind of have, this is napkin here. The only reason I have napkin here is to make sure that these snakes can't move back and forth, because the cable loops are slightly oversized for the diameter of these snakes, and it causes them to, you know, you could pull them back and forth. And I don't want that. I want to be able to make sure that if I accidentally pull on one of these snakes, I'm not pulling on the connections underneath. I don't want one of them to come loose or to have stress on it. I don't want these to move, right? So I think that's really important for this setup, how it's going to work. Now I almost have all of the snakes that are going to be coming off this machine. I'm waiting on 2 in the mail. One is going to come here. It's going to be an 8-channel insert snake, and another one here, the 8-channel insert snake. Those are going to connect to the bottom here. And this is going to be channel 1 through 16 of my board, and those will be the inserts for those channels, so I could add compressors to tracks individually. I can't wait to be able to do that. It's going to make my mixing a lot more versatile. So you can see, like, once I have everything set up, I'm going to try to coil all the snakes coming off of this together. And you can see I'm going to have one thick snake going to the board. And I think that's going to be really nice. It's going to be really clean. And I'm going to connect all these in a manner that is easily removable. A zip tie is going to be no good, because if I need to take off one of these snakes for whatever reason, I'm going to have to undo this, you know, cut off the zip tie and start fresh. So I don't want to do that. We'll probably do something with Velcro or something similar to that. You could also see, which this is kind of a mess right now. This is just in here for temporary reasons. Let's move this. You can see I got the other power strip in there, and this is actually a line noise filter unit, trip light, and I have all of the outlets already taken up on it. This is going to be really nice. This is going to connect to the voltage regulator underneath the board, and I'm not worried about amp draw or anything. You know, all this audio equipment, you know, does not draw a lot of amperage at all, so there's no electrical hazards there. But this is really clean. As you can see, I built these wood blocks for this rack to be basically attached to the rack itself. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't mince my words there. This power outlet rack to the rolling rack, right? This is a solid connection, so it's not going to be sliding around in there. I could pull outlets out, or plugs out, really easily. You can see the labels here are super easy to read. CL52E, CG33E, right? That's why I did those labels. It's going to be so nice. Now let's talk a little bit about these coil connectors, and this has kind of been a hot debate in the comments as well as in my own brain. I got rid of the one for all the power cables here, and I think that, you know, if I do need to take one of these units out, having the power cables in one of these coil things is just going to be a pain in the ass. I think people comment that are right. I came to the same conclusion. So right now I just have these Velcro tags on here. If I need to take out one of these units, I don't mind having to unscrew one of these cable connectors for each unit. That's no big deal. That's going to take, sure, a little more time than normal if they weren't, but more importantly, it's way more organized when everything is clipped to the side of the wall. And the way this is right now, maybe I'll put another clip here just so this hugs the wall a little more. Once again, like, extremely minor, but it just helps, at least me mentally, you know, when stuff is clean into the wall. And obviously you're not going to be able to see this stuff once my setup is complete, but as you can see, a recurring theme here is I want to be able to adjust and fix and move things easily with my setup. But speaking of these coil connectors, you know, people were saying they don't really understand why I'm using them, and hopefully I could kind of show you with this piece here. Hold on, let me untangle this. So I kind of made my own snake here. This is a snake made up of all individual cables. And I made it an 8-channel snake, and I kind of wrapped it up with this coil. 2 pieces, you got a clear piece and then a black piece. And yes, you could do something similar with these cable Velcro ties, but it's not nearly as neat. And I don't plan on having to, you know, replace the individual cables in here. You know, it takes longer to put this on and take off, but, you know, hopefully if everything goes right, I shouldn't need to mess with these wires that much. I might need to replace some connectors. I already know some of these connectors aren't working, but the problems are always with the connectors themselves and not somewhere in the middle of the line. So if I need to repair the end of the connector, you know, that's fine. I could do that easily. I could just unplug it from, you know, all the connectors from the board, and I could take out the snake and work on the individual connector that is broken. That's no problem at all. I mean, look how neat this is. This is awesome. This is really awesome. And here's a good example. Like when you do these Velcro ties, I mean, they work, but it's kind of hard to see here because these are so thick. But when you have a lot of small cables and Velcro tied like this, it doesn't stay that neat for that long. Once you pull on one of the wires and it starts coming out a little bit, it just stops being neat. Now you could zip tie it. Like you can see, I kind of have a couple zip ties here when I was originally planning on zip tying it. But once again, the same thing happens. Now imagine if you had one hand on this, where this blue zip tie is, or Velcro tie, and one hand where this green zip tie is, and you kind of like went like this. Sorry, kind of hard to do this. Right, like you could push them back and forth, and it'll cause those wires to bunch out, bunch in, bunch out, bunch in, right? Over time, it is not nearly as neat as these coils. This thing really keeps them together as one unit, and you know, once I connect all these together, it's going to be much neater and organized. And I don't know, I'm doing a lot of talking, guys. Hopefully you're understanding my my line of reasoning. Someone also mentioned that I should consider putting locking casters for the two front casters on this desk. And that's just not going to be necessary for two reasons. One, this desk is so heavy. I can't believe I thought I was going to be able to get away with these kind of like sliding pucks. This thing is heavy. It is hard to move even with the casters currently because it's so heavy. And the second thing is, I don't really need casters because even if I lean on this thing and it wants to be pushed forward, I mean, it's against the wall. It literally has nowhere to go. It's resting against the radiator. So it's not going to move much at all. I'm not concerned about the locking casters. Whew, man, I did a lot of talking. I think I just talked for about an hour. Hopefully this was a good update, and I'll keep you updated as, you know, this process keeps going on, guys. All right. Good night.